very productive meeting. In the meantime, people are here, so thank you. By the way.
That was Ms. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director General for Education at UNESCO. Many thanks, Ms. Giannini. Greetings, everyone. My name is Elspeth McComb. I work on education and gender equality at UNESCO headquarters in Paris, and I will be moderating this event. Vous pouvez écouter l'événement en anglais, en français. Pour ceux qui participent en ligne, vous pouvez également poser vos questions et faire des commentaires dans le chat. So we normally had an intervention here from the Minister for Women, Family and Children from Côte d'Ivoire, but I believe she has had problems connecting. So I'll just give 2 seconds to check that that's still the case. Yes, I suggest we go on to the next part. So let me now give the floor to Professor Darlene Clover, who is Professor of Educational Psychology. And Professor Clover will speak about justice as the foundation for adult education and training.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm not sure if people can hear me. There's quite a delay here.
Yes, we can hear you well, Professor.
Then could you put the slides up, please? Or do you want me to do it?
Pardon, est-ce que vous pouvez mettre les slides? C'est bon? OK.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. Next slide, please. I actually worked with the UNESCO Institute in Hamburg in 1997 on CONFINTEA V. I remember that as quite a radical, forward-looking space of diverse contexts and issues where we explored everything from gender oppression to the environment, democracy, to social responsibility of higher education, museum transformation, and to labor and human rights. We discussed issues like patriarchy, racism, white privilege, trust, lurking each other. It enables us, of course, to see how inequality is maintained and equally that equality is not equity. And that's very important for all of us to learn and to keep in mind. Theory guides as well in terms of education, because I'm an adult educator, both the why and the how we educate, the context and the intention, which is critical, and the methods that we use, which are essential. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. At the beginning of all my classes, At the beginning of all my classes, there are possibilities for these kinds of actions to happen. This brings me back to my original question. What is adult education for? And more specifically, what is adult education for women?
Sorry, Professor Clover, you've been put on mute.
I can't hear anything.
You're back now. We will re-share your screen. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. It's extraordinary that after 1,000 years under COVID with using technology, the technology still doesn't work. Anyway, next slide, please. So for me, epistemic justice is for a sense of agency, something which is fundamental as it, again, precedes acts of agency. Next slide, please. A sense of agency for women is firstly to know that their deeds matter. That is, that their actions, large or small, are meaningful, genuine, and have intrinsic value. Secondly, a sense of agency is that women's words matter, and that no social, political, cultural, or historical location disallows voice and subjectivity. Fricker calls this testimonial justice. A woman's words are heard, believed, and used to shape the present and the future. Thirdly, a sense of agency is women seeing themselves the way they want to be seen. I speak here to the power of self-representation and of self-visualization. Sight is often, not always, but often our most powerful sense. And what we see is what we consider factual or truthful. Without the power to self-represent, women will remain hostage to the visualizing powers of men. Fourthly, next slide, please. A sense of agency is about the imagination. A very different world can only become thinkable and actionable once it is imaginable. The imagination is highly consequential because control over the imagination is control over the future. The imagination is the most subversive thing women can have. Finally, for me, a sense of agency is about location, about creating rhetorical spaces where women can be seen, heard, understood, and taken seriously. Spaces where subjectivities are variously enacted and identities are constructed and continually constructed in those enactings. In these rhetorical spaces, women can historicize the past, story the present, represent themselves as knowers and agents, and imagine a future that must be entirely otherwise to what we have right now. Final slide, please. For me, that is what adult education is for. It is for a deep learning that accompanies accessing cultural and social infrastructures and developing skills. It is for a profound radical knowledge and imagination that in an age of gender oppression and backlash has been silenced, but has not in fact ever been absent. Thank you.
Many thanks, Professor Clover. Well, after this wonderfully provocative presentation, we can come to the panel segment of our event. For those online, I remind you that you should feel free to join the discussion and add any questions you may have to the panelists using the chat function on your screen. We will be monitoring them. So we are fortunate to have with us a very committed group of people from a range of backgrounds as our panelists today. Let me present them. Martha Muwezi is Executive Director of the Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWE, and Secretary to the FAWE Africa Board. Martha, perhaps you can Ms. Josefina Montalvo Munoz is State Coordinator of UN Women's Second Chance Program in Puebla, Mexico, and Headmistress of a school. She is accompanied online by Maria Esther Hernandez Perez, who is a student, entrepreneur, and mentor from Mexico. Marie-Anne-Therese Manussen is Education Program Specialist at UNESCO's Cairo office. Stella Kehangwe Tumzeba is Director of the Literacy and Adult Basic Education Program in Uganda. And James Ensor, who is online, is Chief Executive Officer of the BHP Foundation. So let's kick off our discussion. First of all, Martha. Many governments and stakeholders have established adult education programs with the aim to promote gender equality. Can you tell us why so few women are taking advantage of these opportunities and what we can do to increase their participation?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Good evening, everyone. I know we have 3 minutes, and I'm just calculating what I can be able to put forward in 3 minutes, but I think I will have about 3 issues to put forward. And the first one is when we talk about gender, people tend to think about women, but gender is about both. But for purposes of this discussion, I will focus more on women. And when we talk about adult education, I know Professor Clover has already put it forward. And I will borrow from her 3 words: the deeds, the works, and the representation. That's the whole issue, why we need education for each and every person. And education is a right, it's not a favor. Going to adult education, there are opportunities. Governments have put in place mechanisms. Civil society organizations, development partners have put a lot of effort to ensure that even those that have been disadvantaged are able to get the opportunity to get into education. And to get this education, it's about representation. It's about the contribution that the women make. But again, despite the opportunities that have been put forward, the number of women that take advantage of those opportunities are limited. I'll just give a very brief example of the Kenyan situation. Studies bring out that there are more women joining adult education than men. That is very correct. But it's also correct to say that the number of women that are illiterate are many more than the men. And that's what puts the percentage to appear much more than that of the men. There are many women out there that need adult learning and education more than the men. Historically, that is very clear to all of us. And much as the women are in there, there are factors that make them not complete the sessions or factors that make them not even be able to join. And which are these factors? One, it's the issue of gender roles. The women have many roles to play. I'm a mother, I'm a housewife, I'm a worker, I'm a breadwinner, and I'm a caregiver. So holding all those titles and adding on participation into education makes it very challenging for many women. And that's why those that join, many of them are not able to complete. And having said that, what do we need to put in place to make sure that the women that are able to join and that those that are able to join are able to benefit from the education? The first thing that everybody is talking about now is transformative education. We need to look at the curriculum. We need to look at the kind of education that we are providing. And this should be motivating. It should be encouraging for the women to get in there. There must be something for them to get in there. Secondly, we need to link the adult learning education to other skills development. Because in some of the countries, it's basically about literacy, but literacy is not all. If we link it to entrepreneurship, link it to apprenticeship, link it to internship, it will motivate many more women to join and be able to benefit from that. And we also need to increase the investment and make value of adult learning education. Once that is done, I'm very confident that we shall have many more women joining and being able to benefit from adult learning education. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those concise and clear points. I'll now turn to Josefina. Josefina, en 2019, ONU Mujeres lanzó el programa de educación de segunda oportunidad y aprendizaje vocacional en 6 países para mejorar el acceso de las mujeres marginadas a las oportunidades de educación y empleo. Su organización es un socio ejecutor en México. ¿Puedes hablarnos del trabajo que están realizando?
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes. Con mucho gusto. Desde CEPICA-C para nosotros, Segunda Oportunidad representa una esperanza para las mujeres más vulnerables. El programa atiende a mujeres de zonas urbanas, de zonas rurales. ¿Y cuál es la clave de esta? Es la educación integral, donde la base fundamental es el ser, la persona. Es decir, empezamos con el desarrollo humano, que fortalece todas las habilidades blandas en las mujeres. El liderazgo, el autoestima, la autoconfianza, que ellas requieren para poder creer que sí son capaces de poder lograr. Se atienden a mujeres que de alguna manera dejaron truncos sus estudios, dejaron truncos algunas alternativas para desarrollarse como persona dentro de su proceso de plan de vida. Y bueno, el programa atiende dos ejes fundamentales que son el desarrollo humano y habilidades digitales, como una herramienta complementaria para el conocimiento hacia el emprendimiento, que es una orientación vocacional para ellas, para la búsqueda del empleo o para que retomen sus estudios. Prueba de ello son varias historias que tenemos, como es el de María Esther, que me acompaña desde México, desde la parte virtual, que es una mujer que ha terminado sus estudios de educación básica y que con ello, pues hoy en día ha emprendido y desarrollado ya un nuevo trayecto hacia la universidad estudiando Derecho. Ya nos compartirá un poquito. Pero por otro lado, quiero compartirles que estos procesos que hoy llevamos en México y que se desarrolla el programa en varios países del mundo, ha impactado específicamente a 6,000 mujeres en México y particularmente en Puebla a 2,500 mujeres, quienes son mujeres que han llevado este proceso formativo de manera integral y que hoy esas mujeres han creado redes, alianzas, red del conocimiento para poder llegar a más mujeres, brindando también este conocimiento a otras mujeres para que conozcan el programa y con ellos se vayan integrando. El programa como tal, en esta educación flexible y sobre todo como lo que mencionábamos hace un momento en relación a la pandemia, se tuvo que adaptar a un modelo híbrido, en el cual se llega a las mujeres en espacios desde sus comunidades, en los centros de aprendizaje, pero también a través de estas redes de gestión del conocimiento. Una clave primordial que tenemos en Puebla y en otros estados de México es la alianza con otros actores que es el gobierno, la parte educativa, la parte empresarial, que son una pieza clave para fortalecer el éxito del programa. Creo yo, y es muy fundamental, seguir apoyando estos procesos de aprendizaje para las mujeres y poder llegar no solo a 6,000, sino a muchas miles más de mujeres. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Josefina. María Esther, no sé si puedes poner tu cámara. Desde que te incorporaste al programa de Segunda Oportunidad en 2020, te has graduado en la escuela secundaria y ahora estás estudiando la carrera de Derecho. ¿Cómo ha afectado el programa a tu vida y a la de otras mujeres de tu entorno? Perhaps while we're trying to connect Maria Esther, we can move on to Marianne. Marianne, the COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns deepened the exclusion of many vulnerable learners without digital access or skills. Would you be able to share examples with us from Egypt of tech-based adult learning interventions that are promoting gender equality and women's empowerment in a meaningful way? Thank you.
Thank you, Elspeth, for the question, and good evening, everyone. Well, even prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, UNESCO Cairo had already been promoting technology-enabled adult learning and education for women and girls through the project Technology-Enabled Literacy for Marginalized Girls and Women, which was supported by Microsoft and the Weidong Group from 2017 to 2019. The project targeted almost 700 girls and women from the Giza Governorate using a specially developed literacy curriculum called Women in Life, which was made available as a digital application. Literacy facilitators received training on delivering the Women in Life curriculum, followed by a series of training workshops on leveraging ICT for literacy instruction. The project provided both the female learners and facilitators with laptops, tablets, projectors, and wireless routers to enhance the face-to-face learning experience, because this was pre-COVID. But more importantly, the Women in Life curriculum had a strong empowerment focus and featured diverse topics such as early marriage, FGM, political participation, family relationships, violence against women, amongst others. The project also promoted entrepreneurship and financial literacy and assisted the female learners in starting their own small businesses. The comprehensive program empowered the female learners to act as key agents of change and peace within their communities and reduced their vulnerability to violence and exploitation. At the end of the project, the female learners sat the examination administered by the Egyptian Adult Education Authority and received literacy certificates. Success rates in the examination reached 92%, which is much higher than the national average. The second project that I'd like to highlight was implemented by Ain Shams University. During the outbreak of COVID-19, Ain Shams University implemented an innovative online literacy project targeting learners from rural areas in Egypt, for which it was conferred the prestigious 2021 UNESCO Confucius Prize for Literacy. Of the more than 21,500 completing the program, 55% were women. In collaboration with the Egyptian Adult Education Authority, Ain Shams University trained its students to teach literacy, numeracy, and life skills to adults from underserved communities. During the COVID-19 lockdown, Ain Shams University rapidly trained student facilitators on the use of digital tools and applications. The university also quickly worked to digitize existing learning materials and produced short instructional videos, which were uploaded to YouTube to enable learners with smartphones to access and view them. University students acting as literacy facilitators used WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger to send learners the learning material, the instructional videos, and assignments. And these platforms were also used to conduct the lessons and provide learners with feedback on their assignments. Just to provide context, a recent decree was issued in Egypt which makes it mandatory for university students majoring in the social sciences to teach at least 4 non-literate adults and support them in becoming fully literate. This is now a mandatory requirement for graduation from university. Now, the final project that I would like to highlight is a public-private partnership that is in the pipeline. Building on the success of the UNESCO-led Technology-Enabled Literacy for Marginalized Girls and Women project, UNESCO Cairo is partnering up with a foundation and a civil society partner to implement a project that aims to benefit 1,500 neo-literate women in Egypt, literacy facilitators, as well as the female learners' families and their wider communities. In this new project, the Women in Life digital curriculum earlier developed by UNESCO will once again be used to promote functional and digital literacy skills, life skills, vocational skills, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy, as well as other empowering knowledge to neo-literate adult women. Seed funding will also be provided to help women start small businesses. Additionally, a community awareness campaign will also be launched to encourage more women in the community to participate in literacy and adult education programs. Perhaps I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I understand that Maria Esther is now online. So Maria Esther, in case you didn't hear the question, desde que te incorporaste al programa de segunda oportunidad en 2020, ¿sí? ¿Me escuchas? ¿Sí? Te has graduado en la escuela secundaria y ahora estás estudiando la carrera de Derecho. ¿Cómo ha afectado el programa a tu vida y a la de otras mujeres de tu entorno?
Buenos días. Es una experiencia muy bonita y estoy dándoles a conocer a las demás mujeres que se puede lograr estudiar, no importa qué impedimentos hayan tenido anteriormente. Yo fui una de las personas que mi papá no me dejaba estudiar por ser mujer y estudié ahorita de grande a mis 18 años. Tengo 38 años ahorita y después de que entré al programa de ONU Mujeres, logré terminar mi preparatoria, logré tener mis papeles de primaria y secundaria por medio de ONU Mujeres. Ahorita estoy cursando Derecho y estoy siendo parte de un grupo de mujeres en donde las estoy impulsando a seguir con sus estudios.
Muchas gracias, María Esther.
Gracias a ustedes.
Gracias. I'll now come to James to continue with the online participation. James Ensor, why is it important for the private sector to invest in education and gender? Big question. In 3 minutes.
Thank you. The vast untapped social and economic potential arising from women's literacy and empowerment demands action from the private sector. We know that educated women have a positive multiplier on their families, their communities and society. And the data is clear. An educated woman invests 85% of her income back into her family or community. And her children are 4 times more likely to go to school. So this is why it's critical that women are enabled and empowered to achieve economic independence, agency and self-determination. But when it comes to tackling these issues, the reality is that no one sector or organisation, whether that's government, civil society or the private sector, can do it by acting alone. We know that to build the social cohesion that's necessary for nations and for economies to function, we must collectively address inequity, discrimination and exclusion. And this is where the BHP Foundation's global partnership with the United Nations Women to deliver the Second Chance Education program comes in. Now, in its 5th year of operation, the Second Chance Education program is successfully providing some of the world's most marginalised women to thrive, removing barriers that are denying women their right to a quality education, and barriers that they're often born into, including extreme poverty, conflict, and gender discrimination. To date, through the program, more than 90,000 women have enrolled in 75 empowerment and learning hubs across 6 countries, including Chile, Mexico, Cameroon, and Syria. Through these hubs, women have the opportunity to return to formal education, to gain self-employment or entrepreneurship training, to gain employment or vocational skills, and to learn life skills. And women are not only gaining skills, but also, importantly, confidence and opportunity. And in doing so, becoming disruptors in their own communities, challenging discriminatory gender-based norms and inspiring other women to join them. The private sector can make a contribution to these challenges by supporting bold innovations like the innovation underpinning the Second Chance Education program, by sharing evidence and learnings to inform better decision making, and by empowering thought leaders like those that we've been joined in this session today, and supporting interventions that have the greatest impact. And it's this kind of transformative change that the world needs simply to happen. It will only happen. We build new models that bring together governments, the private sector, multilateral institutions, and non-government organisations to work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. And I'll now turn to our last panelist, Stella. Stella, your organisation focuses on adult literacy and basic education. Can you tell us how your work has impacted on women's trajectories in education and the labour market? Thank you.
Thank you very much, our dear audience. I work with literacy and adult basic education back in Uganda, and our projects focus on girls and women, and they are anchored on family basic education. Since 2017 to date, we have reached 2,400 women, and these have been able to benefit from our projects. And as a result of their involvement in our projects, we have seen women rising and taking up leadership positions in communities, at church, as leaders of Mothers Union, and they have also become co-educators of their children at home, because we also have early childhood projects that focus on young children at home, and they have become the co-educators of these children. And as women, they've also formed local groups, and they are accessing support from government, and they have started livelihood projects, and these are helping them to improve their livelihood, as well as getting money to support their children's education. We have seen women becoming leaders and even participating in politics. We have seen them becoming campaigners and becoming mobilizers of their community, and as a result of their involvement, they have seen their lives change. We have also seen women becoming social agents of social change, and they are mobilizing their fellow women to participate in community development activities that help them to change their lives. We've also seen women becoming involved in education of their children. At school, they are becoming members of school management committees, and they are keenly involved in education of their children, unlike before, especially in the communities where we are, that really have limited access to information, and they are highly marginalized in terms of source of information, in terms of poverty levels. Where we operate, these communities are highly marginalized. But as a result of their participation in education, in adult literacy, in adult education, we have seen their lives change, and they are still changing, and we see them becoming really agents of change in their communities.
Thank you so much, Stella. So that comes to the end of the panel. Now we have about 5 minutes for questions. I don't know if there are any coming from the floor here. Yes, I see a question at the front. We have a... Yes.
Una pregunta para la compañera que habló sobre los planes de educación para hacer una educación transformadora. ¿Qué cosas han considerado para hacerlo? De Kenia. From Kenya. It's for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to say that I work in Kenya, but I'm from Uganda. I'm proud of being a Ugandan. Yeah, so I was talking about transformative education. And all that I'm trying to point out, and what the way the curriculum is going, is trying to change the systems that are able to create change. If we talk about education, there are varied interventions. There is no single intervention that can be able to change education around. So when we talk about transformative, it's changing basically the systems, the way we teach, how we teach, the content, the curriculum. And one of the things that I would want to say that FAWE has done is we have developed a module which is called the Gender Responsive Pedagogy. It's about the teaching and learning methodologies. If we are talking about women and adult learning education, the methods used, the understanding of the educators in terms of the challenges that the women go through, if that is well understood, then there will be deliberate effort to support the women to get into the programs and also be able to complete the program. Thank you.
Thank you, and I see we have another question also at the front.
Thank you so much. Mine is a question, or like something I want to learn from others. I come from Uganda, and I work with the government of Uganda. I've been in adult learning for the last 17 years. One of our best challenges for participation of women in adult learning and education is the social cultural challenges, which actually bar the women from participating. In most cases, you find that the men want to first go and attend and see what the women are learning. Yeah, because of the patriarchal reasons. So I would like to learn from our colleagues, Egypt and I can't remember the country. Yeah, Mexico. How is your situation? Are there any challenges that are affecting the participation, the social cultural challenges affecting the participation of women in those very many programs? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very interesting question. Josefina?
Sí, respondiendo a esta pregunta, dentro del modelo de segunda oportunidad, incluimos a los hombres en temas específicos que son las nuevas masculinidades y el lenguaje incluyente, los micromachismos, a través de talleres muy puntuales donde trabajamos con el gobierno local, con el gobierno estatal, pero sobre todo con los hombres que están cercanos a las mujeres. Nos ha pasado una experiencia muy rápida, se las voy a contar, donde llega el esposo con la esposa porque quiere ir a ver qué va a hacer en el centro de aprendizaje, qué vas a aprender. En México le dicen, nada más vas al chisme, dicen, ¿no? Allá en México. Pero una vez que el varón se empapa, incluso se queda al curso de computación también y le llama la atención y dice que si también puede ingresar, le dejamos que ingrese, porque sus tiempos no le permiten y en algún momento él va a desertar, pero ya está encaminada la mujer para que continúe su proceso de formación. Entonces, de esa manera, nosotros no le cerramos la puerta a los hombres, aunque el programa está dirigido como tal para mujeres. Es mayor el número de mujeres que ingresa y los hombres que se interesan por ver qué está pasando. El tema que nos ha ayudado mucho para sensibilizar son estos temas de nuevas masculinidades, micromachismos, el tema de género, donde vamos incluyendo a los hombres. Cuesta trabajo, sí, sobre todo por el tema cultural, donde en México particularmente habemos y hay mucho machista, ¿no? Pero sí hemos logrado un avance durante este proceso del 2019 al 2022, donde hay hombres que se han ido integrando y hoy en día en la red del conocimiento está integrada también por hombres profesionistas que complementan la formación de las mujeres en los procesos formativos. Y eso pues también nos da en el programa una palomita para que puedan integrarse también los hombres y puedan abonar un poco a este tema de formación de mujeres como agentes de cambio.
Gracias, Josefina. Marianne, is the situation similar in Egypt?
Thank you for the question. Well, I must say I'm relatively new to the Cairo office, but what I do know is when they were developing the Women in Life curriculum, what they wanted to do was to include culturally sensitive topics that are yet very critical because they were affecting women's participation in adult education programs. I'm talking about topics like early marriage and FGM, and even the inclusion of legal knowledge, like empowering legal knowledge. I'm talking about issues like what are their rights? What are the legal options available to them? Should they find themselves in situations involving domestic violence or abuse? And we found that this had a very positive impact, and it did reduce women's vulnerability and exploitation. And as a result of that, in this forthcoming project that I talked about earlier, we will be launching a broader community campaign, which will build on these lessons learned. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for me to ask one more question to all of the speakers, but I just want one sentence from each of you. What for you is the single most important action that the adult education community should take to advance gender equality and build societies based on gender justice? Perhaps, Marianne, we can start with you.
Perhaps the single most important action that the adult education community could take is to place empowerment front and center of all adult education programs. And when we talk about empowerment, it should be viewed holistically, meaning social empowerment, political empowerment, and even economic empowerment.
Thank you. Stella?
I would like to see development partners developing and advancing models, adult educational models that are inclusive, low cost, and sustainable.
Thank you. Martha?
Yeah, thank you. I would love to see increased investment by all key stakeholders in education in ensuring that the women get into the programs and benefit from the programs. Thank you.
Josefina?
Que existan políticas públicas que sumen a estos procesos de mujeres en la parte de educación y que con ello estén integrados los gobiernos, la sociedad civil, el empresarial también, para que podamos fortalecer la educación para las mujeres, que todas merecen una segunda oportunidad.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll now pass the floor to Ms. Asa Renya, who would make some closing remarks via video. As you no doubt know, Ms. Renya is UN Women's Deputy Executive Director for Policy, Program, Civil Society and Intergovernmental Support.
Her Excellency, Ms. Nasseneba Touré Diane, Minister for Women, the Family and Children of Côte d'Ivoire, Ms. Stefania Giannini, Assistant.
As Professor Clover said, technology is still in its infancy. I think we're all learning how to do hybrid meetings.
Her Excellency, Ms. Nasseneba Touré Diane, Minister for Women, the Family and Children of Côte d'Ivoire, Ms. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for these interesting presentations and comments. I think it was so interesting to hear how all of you really emphasize the fact that women are actors within an ecosystem and that we can't just ensure education and training by itself. We have to ensure that we take into account the social issues, the labor market issues, the cultural issues. I think that's a real lesson for all of us, particularly as we go into the Transforming Education Summit, which you all know is coming up. And there is obviously a real desire to ensure that we push a provocative and transformative agenda. So this is certainly something that we will be taking as we move forward on that. So thank you so much today. And I think the questions really added to our ability to explore those dimensions. Thank you.
General for Education and my colleague at UNESCO, distinguished delegates, partners and colleagues. It's a great pleasure to join you for the closing of this workshop, showcasing the strong linkages between SDGs 4 and 5, how they reinforce each other and contribute to sustainable development. The different perspectives brought together in this meeting help us understand even better how adult learning is instrumental to achieving gender equality and how gender equality is key for an inclusive and transparent.
What's coming afterwards. That's this one. Okay, maybe we'll play this one. Always inspiring to see images. Fortunately, the people who participated in this program weren't able to travel. This is a literacy class that is run out of the factory.
ចាជំរាបសួរអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអរគុណច្រើនកូនចៅណាអរគុណអ្នកគ្រូផ្នែកអក្ខរកម្មហ្នឹងយើងបានរៀនទៅមានអារម្មណ៍ថាសប្បាយហើយនឹកឃើញទៅពីមុនមកថាយើងអត់ចេះអីចឹងទៅតែឥឡូវយើងបានចេះ គ្រាន់បើជាងមុនយើងអាចអានបានមើលបានតែបើសិនជាផ្នែកអក្ខរកម្មមានពីមុនមកខ្ញុំមិនដឹងសប្បាយចិត្តប៉ុន្មានទេនិយាយទៅខ្ញុំបោះបង់ការសិក្សាហ្នឹងរយៈពេលអាយុ12ឆ្នាំដោយសារអីយើងមានសម្ពាធបញ្ហាក្នុងគ្រួសារអញ្ចឹងហើយបើខ្ញុំលះបង់ការសិក្សាហ្នឹងបោះវាចោលអញ្ចឹងទៅខ្ញុំនឹកឃើញអាណិតពុកម៉ែខ្ញុំរកការងារធ្វើផលវិបាកបងពេលដែលយើងអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងពេលដែលយើងកូនយើងមកសួរយើងថាម៉ាក់អានេះអសអីគេតែពេលយើងអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងកូនយើងសួរថាចាំមិនបានម៉ាក់ឯងអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងពេលហើយខ្ញុំក៏ឆ្លើយដាក់កូនថាចុះកូនឯងទៅរៀនរាល់ថ្ងៃថៃបានអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងបានមកសួរម៉ាក់អញ្ចឹងបានន័យថាខ្ញុំអត់ចេះហ្នឹងពិបាកមកកូនសួរមកយើងអត់ចេះមានអារម្មណ៍ថាខ្មាស់ខ្លួនឯងខឹងខ្លួនឯងថៃបានអត់ចេះកូនសួរមកថាមិនបានម៉ាក់អត់ចេះអក្សរសួរអីបានម៉ាក់អត់ដឹងអញ្ចឹង
ចំណេះដែលខ្ញុំបានចូលរួមក្នុងកម្មវិធីនឹងមកខ្ញុំអាចចេះអានច្រើនជាងមុនចេះសរសេរហើយខ្ញុំអាចយកមកបង្រៀនក្មួយៗនៅផ្ទះបានហើយខ្ញុំអាចគិតប្រខែដោយខ្លួនឯងបាន
អរិយាប័ត្ររបស់ពួកគាត់មានការអភិវឌ្ឍជាងមុនចាលើកប្បកិរិយានិងការគិតចំពោះអាកប្បកិរិយាគឺគាត់មានការអនុទនជាមួយក្រុមការងាររបស់គាត់និងថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំរបស់គាត់ចាចំពោះការគិតរបស់គាត់ពីមុនគាត់គិតថាគាត់ចាស់ហើយគាត់អាចរៀនគាត់មានការខ្មាស់អីអញ្ចឹងណាបន្ទាប់ពីខាងខ្ញុំបញ្យល់ណែនាំគាត់ថាការរៀនសូត្រគឺមិនសំដៅទៅលើក្មេងឬចាស់ទេចាចាស់ក៏អាចរៀនបានដែរគឺចំណេះដឹងគឺយើងអាចរៀនបានពេញមួយជីវិតបន្ទាប់ពីខ្ញុំណែនាំគាត់ចឹងមកគឺគាត់មានភាពក្លាហានជាងមុនចោទជាសំណួរសួរឬមួយក៏គាត់អាចឡើងលើក្តារខៀនឆ្លើយនឹងសំណួរអ្វីដែលយើងសួរគាត់បានជាងមុន
សម្រាប់ថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មបន្ទាប់ពីយើងបានចូលរួមមកគឺថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មពិតជាផ្ដល់អត្ថប្រយោជន៍មែនទែនសម្រាប់បងប្អូនកម្មករក្នុងរោងចក្រជាពិសេសបងប្អូនកម្មករដែលគាត់បានជាអក្សរវាគឺជាស្ពានមួយដែលចម្លងពួកគាត់ពីការអត់យល់ដឹងរហូតដល់គាត់អាចទទួលបានការអានការសរសេរបានបាទហើយមិនត្រឹមតែប៉ុណ្ណោះទេនាពេលបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះគឺតកតងជាមួយនឹងបញ្ហាលក្ខសញ្ញាឬក៏ព័ត៌មានផ្សេងសំខាន់អញ្ចឹងបងប្អូនកម្មករគឺគាត់អាចដឹងពីបញ្ហាតកតងជាមួយនឹងសុខភាពសុខភាពផ្សេងៗដែលយើងមាននៅក្នុងរោងចក្រគឺគាត់អាចយល់ដឹងគាត់អាចយល់បាទតកតងជាមួយនឹងបញ្ហាធនធានមនុស្សវិញគឺយើងអាចនិយាយបានថាបងប្អូនកម្មករទាំងអស់គឺគាត់យល់ដឹងច្រើនគឺគាត់មានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរការគិតបាទការនិយាយស្ដីបាទហើយក៏គាត់មានការប្រស័យតាក់ទងផ្សេងៗហ្នឹងគឺយើងមានការប្រស័យតាក់ទងគ្នាល្អបាទអញ្ចឹងយើងក៏អាចនិយាយបានថាវាមានការកាត់បន្ថយតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងការដោះស្រាយអាចនិយាយបានថាជាផ្នែករដ្ឋបាលក៏អាចមានការធូរស្បើយខ្លះៗដែរតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងអក្ខរកម្មអញ្ចឹងអក្ខរកម្មពិតជាពិសេសមែនសម្រាប់ខាងរោងចក្រដែលមានកម្មករដែលគាត់អត់ចេះអក្សរវាជាឱកាសមួយសម្រាប់ពួកគាត់សម្រាប់ខាងខ្ញុំបន្ទាប់ពីយើងបានបង្កើតថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មហើយយើងបានអង្កេតទៅលើបងប្អូនកម្មករដែលពីគាត់អត់ទាន់ចេះអក្សររហូតដល់គាត់ចេះអក្សរហ្នឹងគឺគាត់គិតឃើញថាការនៅបន្តនៅកន្លែងធ្វើការងារមួយគឺគាត់មិនផ្លាស់បន្លាស់ទីទេព្រោះគាត់យល់ដឹងពីអត្ថប្រយោជន៍ផ្សេងៗដែលគាត់ត្រូវទទួលបាននាពេលអនាគត
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណដល់ថៅកែរោងចក្រដែលគាត់បានផ្ដល់ថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មសម្រាប់ឲ្យពួកខ្ញុំអត់ចេះអក្សរបានចូលសិក្សាមួយទៀតគឺខ្ញុំអរគុណដល់ខាងក្រសួងដែលគាត់បានផ្ដល់ជាសម្ភារៈសិក្សាដូចជាសៀវភៅកាតាបនិងសម្ភារៈផ្សេងៗទៀតជាពិសេសសូមឲ្យថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មនេះនៅតែបន្តបើករហូតដល់សិស្សវគ្គក្រោយទៀតឲ្យមានរហូត
Excellency, Ms. Nasseneba Touré-Diane, Minister for Women, the Family and Children of Côte d'Ivoire, Ms. Stefania Giannini, Assistant Director General for Education, and my colleague at UNESCO, distinguished delegates, partners and colleagues. It's a great pleasure to join you for the closing of this workshop, showcasing the strong linkages between SDGs 4 and 5, how they reinforce each other and contribute to sustainable development. The different perspectives brought together in this meeting help us understand even better how adult learning is instrumental to achieving gender equality and how gender equality is key for an inclusive and transformative adult learning experience. Both individuals, women, and countries benefit from women's education. Better educated women tend to be more informed about healthcare, they have fewer children, they marry at later age, and their children are usually healthier. They are more likely to participate in the formal labor market and earn higher incomes, which creates independence for themselves and economic growth for societies. Greater education equality between male and female students could decrease the likelihood of violent conflict by as much as 37%. We know all this, but thus, while the statistics clearly make the case for investing in women and girls' education, it goes without saying, first and foremost, that women and girls are half of humanity and entitled to their human rights. Gender inequalities are still deep-rooted in every society. Women still face lack of access to decent work, as well as gender wage gaps, and in many situations, they are denied access to basic education and healthcare. The socioeconomic impacts of COVID-19 have disproportionately affected women and girls and threatened to push back recent progress and further entrench persistent gender inequalities. Furthermore, although everyone would benefit from access to adult education, it's very rare for women to access it in their adulthood. Addressing the digital gender divide is key to ensure women's access to education and participation in recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and other crises. Thank you all for coming together to highlight the key role of gender equality in adult learning.
Martha said that really struck me. Education is a right, not a favor. So with that, thank you very much for participating. We're going to play the other video just as you leave, but please thank you again for participating, and I look forward to
ជំរាបសួរអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាអរគុណច្រើនអង្គុយចុះណាអរគុណអ្នកគ្រូផ្នែកអក្ខរកម្មហ្នឹងយើងបានរៀនទៅមានអារម្មណ៍ថាសប្បាយហើយនឹកឃើញទៅពីមុនមកថាយើងអត់ចេះអីចឹងទៅតែឥឡូវយើងបានចេះគ្រាន់បើជាងមុនយើងអាចអានបានមើលបានតែបើសិនជាផ្នែកអក្ខរកម្មនឹងមានពីមុនមកខ្ញុំមិនដឹងសប្បាយចិត្តប៉ុន្មានទេនិយាយទៅខ្ញុំបោះបង់ការសិក្សាហ្នឹងរយៈពេលអាយុ12ឆ្នាំដោយសារអីយើងមានសម្ពាធបញ្ហាក្នុងគ្រួសារអញ្ចឹងហើយបើខ្ញុំលះបង់ការសិក្សាហ្នឹងបោះវាចោលអញ្ចឹងទៅខ្ញុំនឹកឃើញអាណិតពុកម៉ែខ្ញុំរកការងារធ្វើផលវិបាកបងពេលដែលយើងអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងពេលដែលយើងកូនយើងមកសួរយើងថាម៉ាក់អានេះអសអីគេតែពេលយើងអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងកូនយើងសួរថាចាំមិនបានម៉ាក់ឯងអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងពេលហើយខ្ញុំក៏ឆ្លើយដាក់កូនថាចុះកូនឯងទៅរៀនរាល់ថ្ងៃថៃបានអត់ចេះអញ្ចឹងបានមកសួរម៉ាក់អញ្ចឹងបានន័យថាខ្ញុំអត់ចេះហ្នឹងពិបាកមកកូនសួរមកយើងអត់ចេះមានអារម្មណ៍ថាខ្មាស់ខ្លួនឯងខឹងខ្លួនឯងថៃបានអត់ចេះកូនសួរមកថាមិនបានម៉ាក់អត់ចេះអក្សរសួរអីបានម៉ាក់អត់ដឹងអញ្ចឹង
ចំណេះដែលខ្ញុំបានចូលរួមក្នុងកម្មវិធីនឹងមកខ្ញុំអាចចេះអានច្រើនជាងមុនចេះសរសេរហើយខ្ញុំអាចយកមកបង្រៀនក្មួយៗនៅផ្ទះបានហើយខ្ញុំអាចចេះគិតប្រខែដោយខ្លួនឯងបាន
អរិយាប័ត្ររបស់គ្រូគាត់មានការអភិវឌ្ឍជាងមុនចាលើកប្បកិរិយានិងការគិតចាចំពោះអកប្បកិរិយាគឺគាត់មានការអលំទោនជាមួយក្រុមការងាររបស់គាត់និងថ្នាក់ដឹកនាំរបស់គាត់ចាចំពោះការគិតរបស់គាត់ពីមុនគាត់គិតថាគាត់ចាស់ហើយគាត់អាចរៀនគាត់មានការខ្មាស់អីអញ្ចឹងណាបន្ទាប់ពីខាងខ្ញុំបញ្យល់ណែនាំគាត់ថាការរៀនសូត្រគឺមិនសំដៅទៅលើក្មេងឬចាស់ទេចាចាស់ក៏អាចរៀនបានដែរគឺចំណេះដឹងគឺយើងអាចរៀនបានពេញមួយជីវិត បន្ទាប់ពីខ្ញុំណែនាំគាត់ចឹងមកគឺគាត់មានភាពក្លាហានជាងមុនចោទជាសំណួរសួរឬមួយក៏គាត់អាចឡើងលើក្តារខៀនឆ្លើយនឹងសំណួរអ្វីដែលយើងសួរគាត់បានជាងមុន
សម្រាប់ថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មបន្ទាប់ពីយើងបានចូលរួមមកគឺថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មពិតជាផ្ដល់អត្ថប្រយោជន៍មែនទែនសម្រាប់បងប្អូនកម្មករក្នុងរោងចក្រជាពិសេសបងប្អូនកម្មករដែលគាត់បានជាអក្សរវាគឺជាស្ពានមួយដែលចម្លងពួកគាត់ពីការអត់យល់ដឹងរហូតដល់គាត់អាចទទួលបានការអានការសរសេរបានបាទហើយមិនត្រឹមតែប៉ុណ្ណោះទេនាពេលបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះគឺតកតងជាមួយនឹងបញ្ហាលក្ខសញ្ញាឬក៏ព័ត៌មានផ្សេងសំខាន់អញ្ចឹងបងប្អូនកម្មករគឺគាត់អាចដឹងពីបញ្ហាតកតងជាមួយនឹងសុខភាពសុខភាពផ្សេងៗដែលយើងមាននៅក្នុងរោងចក្រគឺគាត់អាចយល់ដឹងគាត់អាចជល់បាទតកតងជាមួយនឹងបញ្ហាធនធានមនុស្សវិញគឺយើងអាចនិយាយបានថាបងប្អូនកម្មករទាំងអស់គឺគាត់យល់ដឹងច្រើនគឺគាត់មានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរការគិតការនិយាយស្ដីបាទហើយក៏គាត់មានការប្រស័យតាក់ទងផ្សេងៗហ្នឹងគឺយើងមានការប្រស័យតាក់ទងគ្នាល្អបាទអញ្ចឹងយើងក៏អាចនិយាយបានថាវាមានការកាត់បន្ថយតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងការដោះស្រាយអាចនិយាយបានថាជាផ្នែករដ្ឋបាលក៏អាចមានការធូរស្បើយខ្លះៗដែរតាក់ទងជាមួយនឹងអក្ខរកម្មអញ្ចឹងអក្ខរកម្មពិតជាពិសេសមែនសម្រាប់ខាងរោងចក្រដែលមានកម្មករដែលគាត់អត់ចេះអក្សរវាជាឱកាសមួយសម្រាប់ពួកគាត់ញ៉ាំខាងខ្ញុំបន្ទាប់ពីយើងបានបង្កើតថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មហើយយើងបានអង្កេតទៅលើបងប្អូនកម្មករដែលពីគាត់អត់ទាន់ចេះអក្សររហូតដល់គាត់ចេះអក្សរហ្នឹងគឺគាត់គិតឃើញថាការនៅបន្តនៅកន្លែងធ្វើការងារមួយគឺគាត់មិនផ្លាស់ដំណាស់ទីទេព្រោះគាត់យល់ដឹងពីអត្ថប្រយោជន៍ផ្សេងៗដែលគាត់ត្រូវទទួលបាននាពេលអនាគត
សូមថ្លែងអំណរគុណដល់ថៅកែរោងចក្រដែលគាត់បានផ្ដល់ថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មសម្រាប់ឲ្យពួកខ្ញុំអត់ចេះអក្សរបានចូលសិក្សាមួយទៀតគឺខ្ញុំអរគុណដល់ខាងក្រសួងដែលគាត់បានផ្ដល់ជាសម្ភារៈសិក្សាដូចជាសៀវភៅកាតាបនិងសម្ភារៈផ្សេងៗទៀតជាពិសេសសូមឲ្យថ្នាក់អក្ខរកម្មនេះនៅតែបន្តបើករហូតដល់សិស្សវគ្គក្រោយទៀតឲ្យមានរហូត